All right, well, welcome everyone to our launch of the Central Queensland GEG. We've got teachers this afternoon from across the district tuning in. We've got teachers in Mackay down to Bundy and all the way out to Longreach, where we're coming to you live from today. We've also got a panel of great presenters, but we'll come to them very, very shortly. We're here in sunny Longreach today to launch the Central Queensland GEG. GEGs are Google Educator Groups. They're communities of educators who share, inspire, empower each other to meet the needs of students through technology solutions, both in the classroom and beyond. They're run by educators and for educators. GEGs are independent communities to which Google is the primary partner and inspiration. So who are GEGs for? They're teachers passionate about teaching and meeting the needs of their students through technology solutions and collaborating with other educators the same way. Essentially, this is all about collective teacher efficacy, working together to improve outcomes for kids in our classes. So to help us launch the Central Queensland GEG, we're lucky to have you with us this afternoon. But we also have some very special presenters who've given up their time to share some of their favourite Googliness. We're indebted to have with us this afternoon Anthony Speranza, Penny Mcewen, Martin McGoran and Carol Ann Durkin, who are joining us to present a range of topics for both primary school and colleges. Before I introduce our first presenter to you, you can participate this afternoon's session. It doesn't have to be just a sit and get session. We have a back channel that you can use to ask questions or have your input. And I'll just show you how we get to that now. So if you just bear with me. So there's the URL that you can use. So it's a goo.gl URL. All you've got to remember is the last 6 characters. So maybe if you take a picture with your camera, and then just punch that into a browser, you can use that. What we'd like you to do is to use that to ask questions, perhaps provide some insights. Each of our presenters has access to the doc, so please be respectful when you're adding comments, and make sure that you add your name so that we can address you as we go about answering your question. Look, let's get cracking then. So first up this afternoon, we have Anthony Speranza with us. Anthony's a certified Google for Education trainer and innovator. He's the 2014 DLTV Educator of the Year, as awarded by Digital Learning and Teaching Victoria. And he's a 2017 New Voice in Educational Leadership Scholar, as awarded by the Australian Council for Educational Leaders. In his role as the ICT Learning and Teaching Leader at St Mark's Primary School in Dingley, Victoria, he works across the school with all students and leads teachers to leverage technology to its full potential. Anthony's working with the EdTech team to host the 2018 Rockhampton Summit at Emmaus College. He's the main man when we have the Rockhampton Summit in September. I was fortunate to see Anthony at the Melbourne Summit in 2016, and I'm pumped to see what he has for us today in 2018. They've had a horrific storm down there in Melbourne. So we really are indebted to have both Martin and Anthony with us this afternoon. But over to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon, and well done on launching this exciting GEG event and network. It's great to talk to you from Melbourne. Hopefully the house will be still standing with all the wind and the storms going on at the moment. I'll just share my screen with you. And Paul, if you could just let me know that you can see that.
Yeah, all good.
Perfect. So what I'd like to do is talk to you about a bit of action research that myself and my colleagues were involved with last year, looking at how we might assess and track the critical and creative thinking capability using things like Google Docs, forms, and sheets. Where this came from was a project we were invited to participate in, looking at STEM as a priority, how that could lead to transformative and deep learning for students, but in particular, how do we assess and track things like the critical and creative thinking? So we've done that with the Victorian curriculum. The Victorians seem to like making modifications to the curriculum, but essentially it's quite similar with the Australian curriculum, which I know Queensland use. And so what we did was undertake some action research to observe how and what students do, know, and be and say in moments of creativity. We had quite a lot of conversations with our colleagues. Creativity is one of those words that you spray around, sounds really good, but it's quite hard to sort of quantify, or is it tangible? How does it actually defined? How do you unpack it, and also how do you teach it? We all sort of agreed that if you can know what creativity is, you can teach it, but how does one go about doing that? And this led us to our action research, which was how might we assess and track development of dispositions in students. Professor Bill Lucas has some great resources and ideas in terms of approaching assessment for the capabilities. It's really difficult because a lot of the assessment we do in schools often has to do around sort of tests and diagnostic tests, and dispositions are certainly not quite clear cut that way. So he suggests some of these sort of either student-led approaches or teacher-led approaches. And so the ones that we decided to focus on are highlighted in green here in terms of how do we use G Suite to increase the amount of self-reflection our students are doing, how we could provide platforms for logs, diaries, and journals, and to do performance tasks. Our inquiry project last year was around the Lord Howe Island and looking at the stick insects. And so what the students were given was some extended period of time to collaborate with members of their class to theorize and design a solution so that in a problem-based scenario, if scientists had to land somewhere on the island to investigate the Lord Howe Island stick insects, how would they do that? And one of the ways in which we suggested they could do that was the idea to build a catapult. So there were certain constraints in that project, but they had to work quite a lengthy period of time over 4 days. And there were collaborative and individual tasks. And essentially, there was a whole range of process there, from investigating, planning, designing, building, redesigning, and reflecting. So looking at how we actually used G Suite then, one of the things we actually did was just to check on what were students' perceptions of creativity. So we created a form that students filled out every day, answering the question, to me, creativity is ... and ways I was creative today ... We repeated that over 4 days, which was really interesting. Students were saying things like, to me, creativity is art, or art and music, which is kind of true, but we weren't really seeing where students were, where we were wanting them to think about creativity and the critical thinking capability. We certainly looked at them identifying ways that they thought they were creative, and we were surprised when students said that they weren't creative at all, or that they did not know if they were creative. But some students were able to identify that the tasks we'd set up did allow them to be creative, which was great. Tracking that over a period of time means that we can see if the effect of how we're being very deliberate and articulate in terms of the sort of dispositions we want to see in students, whether or not we're making a shift in their sort of understanding of that particular disposition. This is just a Google sheet where we've combined some of that data so that we can track what they said on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday over a period of time. And this was quite useful for our action research. We also developed a disposition continuum where you can see a range of qualities relating to the critical and creative thinking capability, and a bit of a scale in terms of students identifying where they sit on that scale of 1 to 4, whether that, yes, I was really adaptable in this project, or no, I wasn't really, I was kind of stuck with the same idea and prototype and I wasn't willing to try anything new. We matched this with a Google form so that when students completed this Google form, we sent all of that information to a tool called Autocrat. So what Autocrat does is it can marry up a Google document and form responses together so that when students fill in this form and identify themselves on that scale, they'll automatically receive back a document with their scale on the right-hand side. And then also at the bottom of the Google document is where they've put their answers to. I think a strength of mine is, an opportunity for me to grow would be in, and I think I can grow in this area by. Their responses are on the bottom of that document, and that is theirs to keep as their self-reflection page. The reason why we just don't give them a Google document to do this, but get them to do it in a form first, is because it's far easier to collect all of that evidence across the year level. So as a form, all that information is sent to a Google Sheet, which means then we've got all of the data of everybody in our year level, and we actually see what is the highest ranking qualities that our kids are saying that they've been showing, which then leads us into the next project to see, well, if kids were maybe sort of struggling a little bit with risk-taking or persistence, how might we support them a little bit better in that? And it's also interesting to see correlations between boys and girls and different peers, and also to see what they're sort of saying about their perceived strengths as well, to really see if we can understand their own perceptions of the critical and creative thinking capability. So that's in a little bit of a wrap. I know that's a little bit of a whirlwind, but Paul, I'm happy to take any questions if there are. But basically, there's just a couple of ideas there in terms of how do we use some of these Google tools to approach assessment in a little bit of a different way, which I think is required when you're looking at assessing things like creativity.
Well, there's no questions there on the shared doc at this point, Anthony, but you know, if someone wants to jump in and jot some questions down and share them with us, we'll come back to that in a sec. Anthony, there's some great insights there, and there's a real parallel, I think, between what you're trying to do in Victoria and what we're perhaps trying to do up here in Rockhampton Diocese. Certainly there's a push, I'm hoping, towards STEM, and there's certainly a real push at the moment towards data and being able to capture data that's meaningful, that you can work with and work on to improve outcomes for kids. So that's a terrific presentation. Thanks for that.
No problem. And I'm happy to stay on the call, and if there's any sort of burning questions as they come through the next couple of minutes or after the fact, I'm happy to answer those. Paul, just talk about the summit then, and then that might give us a little bit of time to see if there are any questions that come through. So as Paul, as you mentioned, great. Paul, as Paul mentioned at the start, there will be an EdTech team summit in Rockhampton on the 24th and 25th of September this year. And that will be coupled also with a summit in Townsville in early October. So our first Queensland summit for EdTech team was in fact last year. So it's great to be returning again. And I'm privileged to be hosting it this year with Emmaus College up there. The summit represents excellent value for money. Some of the session highlights include anything to do with G Suite at all. And there's going to be some sessions there that are suitable for beginners, but also from the intermediate and advanced. And if you're just starting with G Suite and you want to know what's next, there'll be sessions for that. But if you're already well and truly on your way and you want to dig more deep into things like managing data with Google Sheets or HyperDocs or Google Classroom, there'll be plenty of sessions there on offer for you as well. And it doesn't stop with only the Google things as well. So we're going to have some things around STEM and Makerspace, some iPad sessions as well. And if you want to know more about the different sessions that are on offer and some of the speakers that will be presenting, just go to the URL edtech.team/Rockhampton 2018. You'll see the schedule there, and there will be more sessions added. So it's a bit of a draft schedule at the moment. The EdTech team pride themselves on the summit experience that provide, and always we get overwhelming responses from attendees, and we're surprised about how many people haven't attended a summit before or haven't heard of this idea of an EdTech team summit. So we really would encourage you to think about attending. I know Paul and I have discussed a way that we can help support this GEG network. So what we'd like to do is give away one free ticket to a member of the Rockhampton Summit. So if you'd like to win that ticket, what we're asking you to do is just post in the GEG Australia Google Plus community. And I know Paul provides a link to that as well. And if you post under the Queensland section and just share an example of something that you've learned about G Suite and what you're applying in your class or your school community, if you use the hashtag innovation in that post, what we'll do is we'll take all of those entries and we'll randomly select a winner and invite you to Rockhampton, and we'll cover that ticket for you. So we hope to see you there. There's plenty of information on the website. And again, that's just edtech.team/Rockhampton 2018.
That's great, Anthony. Thank you for that. And I guess for people in the Catholic Education Diocese of Rockhampton, just keep in mind that the group discount form that I put out some time ago is going to close on the 30th of July, and that will give a significant discount that's provided by EdTech team. But that's a great offer from the EdTech team to provide that additional free ticket, and we'll be showing you shortly how you can jump on the GEG Australia community and post that. So still no questions there, Anthony, but if you hang around, we might see what comes. So next up, we have Martin McGorran. When I put a call out through the GEG Australia Google Plus community for guest presenters, Martin was in there in a flash. Martin is a certified Google for Education trainer and innovator. He's held leadership roles in ICT at primary schools in Mount Isa, as well as Mount Waverley in Victoria. And he's now the education support in numerous schools, ICT, and the implementation of the new digital technologies curriculum. He's also a member of EdTech team, leading custom PD, and is a spotlight presenter at summits in Australia and New Zealand. So thanks, Martin, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the intro. Yeah, Queensland has a place in my heart, spending a couple of years in Mount Isa teaching out far northwest, and had a great time. And funnily enough, where my sort of journey with technology and Chromebooks one-to-one, they were one of the first ICs to go that direction. So I'd have a lot to thank for Queensland, my time up there. Let me share my screen. And beautiful. Excellent.
All good.
All good. So, funnily enough, and I was just mentioning to Paul, and this goes with technology, I had something else planned for today about Kaizena, which is a Google Docs add-on. And if I go to my doc here, in the add-ons, I've had that installed for 9 months, and it's a great tool, voice comments and the like. And just today, as I went to do one last test, it disappeared off the face of the earth. So a good lesson for anyone using tech about having a plan B and going to something else that you may not have originally planned to do. So Kaizena, K-A-I-Z-E-N-A, if it does pop back up, which I do hope so, I don't think it's gone for good, is a great tool for voice commenting in docs, as well as some other functionality they've built in. But plan B, and what I'd like to share with you today, is about screencasting, and particularly the new little course that's been released by a guy called Matt Miller, an educator in the US. It's a Master the Screencast, an online PD. Now, the reason I wanted to share it was a lot of people listening may be in charge of driving technology use at their school. And I think sometimes a challenge when we're looking to spread that enthusiasm of as how we can lead other teachers. The way this is set up, I really like it. So I'm going to walk you through what it is. It's free. It introduces you to screencasting, and the beauty being that if you used screencasting before, you can jump ahead. So that I took it. It's aimed at being only 1 hour of content, but what I did was have a look at the basics. I already understood. I'd used Screencastify before, so I was able to jump ahead. And I think this sort of learning, on-demand learning, sort of mirrors the sort of teaching that we're aiming for with our students, where we're teaching at the point of need. In schools, if we're looking for other teachers to drive professional learning, I think this model can work really well, where you might introduce this in a staff meeting or a professional learning team and have teachers work at their own pace through these videos, flipped learning as we refer to it, and teachers who are more competent might not go through the basics. So let me jump in and get started to show you. It's a series of videos, and it goes from the very beginning. So if you have never used and installed a Chrome extension, it starts from the beginning, which is great for those teachers who might be apprehensive. And if you've already used Screencastify, which a lot of people may have, you can get through these. And most importantly, and this is where I think it really hits a nail on the head, it talks about the tool itself, but a tool in itself is pretty useless without the purpose. And that's where we start looking at section 4, the lessons, and we look at why we use it and things like student feedback, parent communication, and then how students might use it for stop motion, explaining math problems. Webcam Reflections is an interesting one because Screencastify not only allows you to record your screen, but it can just be used purely for the webcam. So the students themselves would have their face on there, almost like a video diary, great for reflecting, even linking in with Anthony's presentation about students' metacognition, thinking about their thinking and their creativity. You could have students be recording their own thoughts along the way. So The module part of it, I think, is fantastic in that, as I mentioned, people can jump in and out. I was able to skip a fair bit having used it, but even having used screencasting a lot, I found some really interesting things towards the tail end where he calls it app smashing. So it's combining a couple of apps together. And I thought I'd just share quickly a couple of things that I had learned. So if you're not familiar, Screencastify lives in the Chrome Web Store, and I'll just show you what it looks like here. It's an extension, free. There's a premium version, but I suggest the free one's fine for most of the things you'll be wanting to do and your students. So that's what it looks like. I've already got it installed. One of the tools I really like learning from Matt Miller's little course was a simple one called a web whiteboard app. So it's just, what it is really a simple interface for you to be able to, a little bit like if you've used the iPad app, explain everything. It just gives you a place to explain your thinking. So you can use lines, you can use pens here to write away, explain as you're talking using your voice. And as you can see, it lends itself beautifully to mathematics, where you're looking for students to explain their thinking along the way and turn that into a short video as opposed to a written pen and paper test. So screencastifying is something I'm super passionate about because of the fact that it allows students to use voice rather than writing, which opens up assessment to students who might struggle with literacy, struggle with writing. They're suddenly able to use their voice and gives great insight. I know Anthony's used maths screencasting as a tool within his school as well, and it's something that sort of inspired me to get using it as well, having seen it used at St. Mark's there in Anthony's workplace. So Screencastify, if teachers and students are using the Chrome environment, it's free. It encourages a whole range of different uses of technology beyond what you would normally be just using technology on a surface level, because it allows students to explain their thinking. They can then share those videos with other students. Another tool I've used is something called Sketchpad, where similar to the web whiteboard, it just allows you to have different tools. There's a few more in this one, and you're able to, again, if you've got touchscreen, it works nicely. If not, using the mouse pad and trackpad. Let me head back to here. So in short, the course itself finishes with a little final exam, which is simply a Google form quiz of 20 questions. You get to the end of that, and again, it's free, nothing to it. You get yourself a little badge, which I think really holds staff accountable for their own learning. They get something at the end of it. It shows that they've mastered the screencasting, and then it's going to promote sort of that collaborative learning in amongst your staff and students. I think I'll keep it nice and short and sharp because everything's on that page, and I've put the link in the back channel there to find yourself there, but it's on the Screencastify page. It's free. It's a series of short videos, which I loved because I can't hold my own concentration much more than a couple of minutes. And these videos, as you can see, 2, 3, 4 minutes. And there's no reason why some of these couldn't be used with students as well. I think I'll wrap up there. If there's any questions from the panel or anything in the back channel there, I'm happy to answer it. But I think a tool that we can use as teachers ourselves, but also to spread that enthusiasm amongst other teachers is sometimes challenging, and this one ticks all the boxes for me. Thanks very much for your time, everyone.
Good on you, Martin. Thanks for that. Matt Miller is certainly a great operator. If you're on Twitter, Matt Miller is on Twitter and puts out some great stuff to help teachers of both primary and colleges really, really well. So thanks for that, Anthony, Martin. I know that Screencastify is a tool I use quite regularly to do short how-tos to explain something to people when I can't be there to provide some assistance. So I'm hoping that people will take your advice there and jump on that short course. So next we welcome Penny Mcewen. Penny's an educational disruptor and innovator. She's held leadership roles in high schools across the Wide Bay region, and she's currently the e-learning coordinator at Shalom College in Bundaberg. Penny leads digital technology PD in her school and facilitates the school's makerspace, which has recently been selected STEM activities for the Bundaberg community as part of the popular month-long Crush Festival in October. In 2017 and 18, Penny has led the renovations of new educational spaces at the college as part of the new project-based learning program undertaken by Shalom in 2018. So, Penny, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks everybody. I'm also very happy to be presenting here today. So thank you very much for having me. I'm actually relatively new to Google. I spent 10 years in EQ prior to this. So for any EQ users out there, I do understand the frustrations of not being able to use Google, but what I'm going to show you today, you actually can, your students still are able to create Google Maps, but you just may not have the collaboration function and you know, that sort of goes along with Google. So I'm going to show you through how to create a Google Map, but I'm also going to talk about the benefits of, you know, using Google Maps in the classroom, and also the sorts of you know, areas that you can actually create Google Maps. So I'm also going to share my screen with you. So if I head on into Google Maps, it's just you know, just clicking into Google there, clicking on more, and opening up Google Maps. The sorts of things that I use Google Maps for include, like I teach tourism, for example, and so it's really good for those students, you know, just knowing where general locations are in the world. They create itineraries and things like that they are assessed on. In history, you know, when we look at human rights, we look at abuses around the world, and the students can map some of those locations. The Spanish conquest of the Americas, you know, you could use that to track the routes taken by, you know, various explorers like Columbus, Magellan, etc. I know some of our geography teacher here at Shalom, she uses Google Maps to investigate hazards and natural disasters and things like that. You know, in English, it has scope there as well. So you've got things like, you know, people can map novel events and where they occur. In maths, it's really, really good for, you know, for length, you know, teaching length, distance, area, longitude, latitude. You know, science, you can map animal populations. You know, there's a whole range of things you can use Google Maps for. I even really like using scavenger hunts. So, you know, giving them longitude and latitude points on the map, and then asking questions like, you know, what are similar things about these 4 locations, and then off they go and start, you know, engaging in that. And there's also, along with this, really cool websites such as Smarty Pins. There's Earth Picker as well, and GeoGuessr, just really fun geographical games that you can play with your students. But I thought I'd show you guys how to actually create a Google Map, and in the back channel there will be a link there with full instructions. It's on a Google slide, full step-by-step instructions that you can project onto the board for your students to be able to do this. So first thing you do is you know, open up Google Maps and...
Interrupt.
Yes.
Have you shared your screen yet?
Oh, no, I haven't. There I am. I'm sharing it right now. Hopefully you can all see it now. Are we sharing?
Yep.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so the 3 little bars here on the left-hand side, when you drop down that menu there, you get to this thing here called Your Places. We'll tab there. And then if you click over into Maps, you can see here a whole range of maps here. So I'll just take you through just a couple that we've, you know, created here at school. So in Year 10, we have a parent evening, and the parents come out and they do a bit of a tour of the college. So a few of our Year 10 students actually created a Google Map so that, you know, they could share it, and parents could sort of have a look at, you know, various history of some of our blocks. So for example, you know, we've got Hogan block there, you've got Macaulay, you know, Adams, and it goes through there. It's got some photos here and there as well, the Trade Training Centre. So this was a really kind of interesting way of using it. I open it up in My Maps as well. The other cool thing that you can do when you create a map, which I'll show you in a moment, is you can even add in distances. So if you can see there, I'm just kind of clicking through the area so that students know roughly how long their tour will take. I just keep clicking through there, you know, coming back here over, etc. So roughly they would be covering about, you know, about a kilometre in that little, you know, journey around the school that they do. Another way that we've used it in class, so I mentioned before about in history, I'm a history teacher, so using it to map human rights abuses around the world. We did a unit last term on that. So you know, students came in and they found photos online and they looked at various human rights abuses, and they were able to chart those on a map and sort of look into various things around the world happening. And another one I'll show you, you know, currently we're doing a unit on ancient Egypt. So I had the students mapping various, you know, locations in ancient Egypt. So once again, I'll just open that up in the viewer. And you can see here you've got all the different, you can have different layers and things like that, but I'll get to that in just a moment. So when clicking on each one, again, the student has a picture of the site and then also just some, you know, information about it as well. So you've got, you know, Alana, whoops, just zooming in there, lost a little bit there. So yeah, lots of different uses for it, but I will quickly show you how to create a Google map. It is a pretty simple process, and once you teach it to your students, they kind of just take it and run with it. So once you are in your, just go through that again, my places, your places, and you click into maps. If you click on create map at the bottom here, and then that will bring up a page for me to start. So first of all, you know, you give your map a title. So for example, I might do most livable cities in 2018, for example. You can add a description down there as well and press save. For example, the first one I would do would be Melbourne, Victoria. That's always, whoops, that always scores pretty high. Let me make Melbourne again, not so much the airport. Okay, so it drops the pin in there. When you click on that pin, you can see here it comes up with, you know, some detail there. But when you click on add to map, you get a whole bunch of different icons here and different things that you can do. So on the edit button, if you pop up there, you could, you know, add some extra detail in here. So ranked #1 of most livable places in the world, and save that. You can also add images. So when you click on the little camera option, you can find, if you've saved some, you know, images of Melbourne, and then you can pop that into there, press save. You have all sorts of different icons and colors that you can choose as well. There's a whole range of different icons that you can use to you know, delineate things on your map there. And then once you've got the first one, you've added your very first, you know, place location on a map. You can also edit layers. So layering is really good for, you know, different things, like if you've got, for example, in my local area, if we have, you know, maps showing the high schools of Bundaberg, you can overlay that with maps of the primary school, and you can tick them on and off, and you know, all sorts of things there. So I add a layer. It's much the same. It brings it in there. Again, you can rename it. So you might go top 10 cities, for example, and this layer here might be the top 5 cities. So you can overlay them and switch them on and off just to kind of show, you know, each of those. So if I do another one here, so I'll go up into my map and I'll type in, go Vienna. Oops, can't talk very well. Afternoon, here we go, Vienna. So once again, clicking on the little icon there, add to map, editing again, so, you know, #2, whatever you want to say about that, save, and then once again adding an image. I think I grab one of Vienna there and saving that in, and there we have it. Once students have created their map, and you know, with whatever content it is that you would like them to use, you can then get them to share it with you, and to do that they just up here in share button, and then just you know, in terms of sharing, I generally have them, if you click on that, just that little private access button there, with our school. So anyone who has, and students should be logged in with their Rockhampton password and username. So that means if I have this one here, anyone at the Catholic Diocese can actually access that, or anyone, you know, with the link, or just public on the web, or anyone with a link on the web as well. So I say anyone with the link, and press save. And then I can also add in, I can either copy and paste that link there and send it off to people, or I can even just put people in here, names within my organisation that I can also share that with, and then press send. And so once that happens, you will have, you know, when you log in, you'll see, like me here, you've got a whole bunch of maps that students have shared with you. So you can kind of drop in and out of those and have a look at those maps. So yeah, it's a fantastic tool for engagement and also, you know, building skills. It frustrates me sometimes when some students, you know, wouldn't even have a clue we're doing World War II, and that, you know, you ask them where some of these places are and they, you know, they don't really know. They couldn't even point to somewhere on a map. So I really like using Google Maps just, you know, for that very reason as well, as to teach students where you know, countries are in relation to each other, but, you know, for mapping all sorts of different things, and it has scope to be used in, you know, a wide range of subjects as well. So I might wrap it up there as well. Hopefully you have been able to access that that link in the back channel. I did make sure that it was shared with everybody with the link. So let's hope that you can access that. And any questions, yeah, just give me a shout and I'll endeavour to answer them in the back channel. So thank you. Okay, and I will just, whoops, take off my screen share now.
Thanks, Penny. That's terrific. So there's something for everyone there, whether you're a secondary school, college teacher, or primary school teacher. I think there's something there that people can use to get that engagement that we're after with our kids. And I know from my perspective, you know, like just looking at maps was never good enough when I was a kid to be able to actually interact with that map. And there's so much, as you said, that you can do with it, from measurement to, you know, longitude and latitude. It's a really great tool to get kids involved in the world around us, because, you know, we are a global village. So if you've got some questions, Penny, there was a little bit of cutting out from my end here. I hope that's not going to continue, but if you've got any questions, drop them in that back channel and we'll try to get them answered before we finish today. Look, lucky last today is Carol Ann Durkin. So Carol Ann's been teaching design and technology since 2002 and has been at Holy Spirit College Mackay since 2013. She's passionate about promoting the importance of design and technology subjects and encouraging young people to consider careers in the field. She's also passionate about using Google in a classroom, having just come back from the Data Queensland conference and presenting to fellow design teachers at the Sunshine Coast in the last break. So please welcome Carol Ann, and it's over to you.
Hi there. I'm just going to go through Google Classroom this afternoon. I'm reasonably new to Google Classroom. I was using OneNote before and quite liked OneNote, but I found that I got to hit a brick wall, you know, with the functionality of it, because it didn't have the classroom capability yet. So I made the switch to Google Classroom in term 3 last year, and I'm using it in every class that I have now. So I teach design and technology, which means I have woodwork, metalwork, graphics and design. And even in my woodwork and metalwork classes, I found a use for Google Classroom and various Google Docs and forms and things like that. So I'll just go through some stuff that I do, and hopefully you'll see some applications that you can use in your classrooms. So share my screen and just make that a bit bigger. So hopefully you can see that. So I have a range of classes there set up, and then we also have some that we use as staff for sharing PD opportunities there. So I'm a student in that class, and I'm a teacher in all of those other ones that you can see there. Okay, so I'll just take you through quickly some of my classes, and then I'll show you how to create a class and how to add different types of assignments and that sort of thing.
Sorry, Carol, to interrupt. I think you haven't shared your screen with us.
No, okay, I'll go back in there. Google.
Thanks, Anthony.
Okay, yeah, and I'll go for entire screen. Yeah, I jumped the gun too quickly there. How's that?
Yep, perfect.
Good.
That's it.
Right. Excellent. Okay, so I'll just go into Metalworks. So Metalworks largely a practical subject, but we do have theory in there. So if I click in that class there, I assign weekly homework for them. So this is a new class that I got last week. So a semester class. So I assign homework on Google Forms, and to make it quick and easy for the students to complete, I make them multiple choice. So here is using Google Forms for assessment. So I've made the questions multiple choice, so the student would put their name in there and then they'll choose their answers. As they go along, you can add pictures, so it doesn't have to be just written questions. You can add videos and things in there as well. And then they'll submit at the end. Okay. And then from my end, I can see who's done the homework, who's not done it. If I click on the task, I can narrow it down to, these are the ones that I've marked already because I've already looked at them. I can look at the ones that are not done, and I can see who's not done. So you can chase up things like that quite quickly. In terms of the ones that are done, because I've made them all multiple choice, Google Forms will assess them for me. And all I need to do is hit import grades. It's asking me to confirm if I want to import the grades from the form. And then in a few minutes, it will populate all those grades in this column here against the student. And then I can return that work to the students. So very quickly, I've just got a record of who's done what. The kids are getting the marks back. I haven't really done any extra work other than create the forms in the first place. It puts their scores in there, and then I would just tick the box, it selects them, and I hit return, and they know what the marks are. If you want to go into it in more detail and see who's answered what, if there's any particular questions that people are struggling with, you can click on the edit tool at the top there. You have your responses, and you can look at the summary of responses, so you can say, oh, you know, everyone was struggling with this question, and then you might need to cover that topic again in more detail if something's answered particularly well, that sort of thing there. And then you have by question, you can filter your responses that way, what each student gave for question 1. And then you can look at the individual responses as well, and you can look at what one student did. So you can see there it's green if they got it correct, and if the student got any wrong, it would show up as a red one, just like that one there. And you can see what they did answer. And when the student has submitted, it will show them what the correct answer is. So they know right away they've got that feedback, and they know what they've got wrong and what was the correct answer. Okay, so that's using Google Forms for assessment. You can have all different kinds of questions, so you can differentiate your lessons using it. So they're multiple choice because it's for homework, so I want it to be a quick exercise to have a track of you know, the knowledge over a term, and to keep the theory you know, at the forefront of their mind all the way through, rather than having blocks of theory lessons, which we would do in the past. So you know, it's like a 2-week focus on theory, and then we would do an exam. This just keeps it ticking over week on week. But you can choose all different types of questions, so they can type in answers where you can ask them to explain or describe and things like that, so that you can extend some students, or you can have the simpler multiple choice if you had a student who was struggling a little bit. I also use Google Forms to track progress. So if I've gone back there, it shows you all my Google Forms. So I have this sort of example here where I've used Doc Appender, which is an extension, to populate my class list as question 1. And then I've put the different topics that I would do in Year 9 design and the possible grades that a student could get. And then I've taken this from the standards elaborations for 9 and 10 design and technologies. So I've put all the descriptions that were in a table format as multiple choice answers, and just go through the different criteria that I should see in design. So when I'm assessing a student's folio in design, I can just bring this up as a preview, and I can choose which child I want to assess, and I'll go through, I'm assessing their clock, and then I would say, well, what did they get for technologies and society, and I would select what grade they got for each of these elements, and so on, until you get to the end. And if something's not assessed in that particular unit, then I would just put non-applicable and keep going till the end. And then when I hit submit, there's also room for comments as well. So you can give feedback like, oh, you should have, you know, justified your decisions more clearly or whatever, and then hit submit. And it will put that into a Google Doc for that student. So it goes in a table format, and they only see the grades that they got with the feedback comment at the bottom. Okay, I'll go back into Classroom and have a look at some other quick examples. So Year 7 graphics, we have Year 7s for a term. So we very quickly give them an introduction to AutoCAD and to sketching. And I've used Google Forms again as an introduction. And this time I've put some drawings in, getting them to try and visualize, you know, which side of the object is shown here and so on. So that's a multiple choice one there. And then we start doing drawings, and the students have to share the drawings with me. So I use Screencastify as well to make video tutorials. So I will go over stuff in class, but then if the students want to go over at their own pace, they can sit with headphones in and watch the videos or watch them at home and then come back in, and they can pause and do a little bit themselves on AutoCAD and then come back and replay. That also allows me to differentiate. So some students might grasp the concept really quickly and race through the drawings. If I have the video tutorials there, they can move on at their own pace and they don't need to wait for the rest of the class. And that frees me up then to get round the students that need a bit more one-to-one support. So I can give them that attention, because I know that students aren't waiting for everyone to move on. So those are there. And I just use that Screencastify that was shown earlier. While I'm doing a drawing, I speak the instructions. So it records my voice and records the screen at the same time. And then I would get the students to do the drawings on AutoCAD and export them to PDF and upload them here. Again, this is a new class last week. And 10 design. Okay, so I share interesting engineering facts and things as a weekly activity there. So I might put links to websites and Facebook and things like that in there. They've got their weekly homework through Google Forms. This one has a video in it. So they have to watch a video clip. So the YouTube link goes in here. And then once they've watched the video, so it wants the name in there. So once you watch the video, then you can move on to the next part, which is questions based on that video. So these are good for homework and also good for cover lessons. So if you're going to be away from your class and you need to set some work for someone else to give to your students, you can find videos on ClickView or YouTube and things like that, put them in, and then put your questions in here. And depending on how you set the question, it could be self-assessed, or it could be something that you have to review later if the children have typed in their answers. Okay, so I've got all my different lessons there. We do quite a bit of collaboration in this class. So if I just go back a bit, I have Google Slides and Google Docs where the students can collaborate. So in this one here, everyone's collaborating on the same document. So we were looking at needs and wants in design. So I set up a Google slide and I put the needs and wants in the two columns. And all students had access to the same document here. So they're all typing at the same time. And as the students are typing, you can see their initials or their little icon here come up beside their name, and you can see who's typed what. So that lets us collaborate, and then you've got the accountability of who's contributed what to it, and they can be spurred on by each other, you know, because maybe they didn't quite get what a want was and what a need was. So when they see some of the lists being populated, they go, oh yeah, okay, right, I know what you mean, and they start typing in as well. So that's where everyone is working on the same document. You can do the same with Word, not Word, Google Docs. And then this example here, where each pair of students had a different Google slide, so we were doing empathy maps, and I gave them access to the same document, but they were working in pairs. So each student claimed a slide so that they can start typing in there. And you can see they've got the student names in the middle, and they were talking about one of those five topics here. And then sometimes they just have access to the document themselves. So it's one per student. Each student will get a copy. So then they'll be talking, they haven't done this lesson yet. Each student will be writing on their own document, and I'll be marking them individually rather than working in pairs or working as a whole class. So you can see there's a different combination of tasks that are set, whether they've got videos, whether they're looking at samples, whether it's a link to resources and things that they can use for research. I can share all of that with them. And if I go to the side here, calendar, it will show due dates, and the students' calendars will show the same. So if they've got 3 or 4 teachers using Google Classroom with them, all of the due dates for tasks will be up there, and they can flick through, and keeps them on track if they're in the habit of being a bit disorganised. As a teacher, you can click on To Do, and it will show you what stuff you need to mark, what you've already done. So you can see I've not got anything to do with these classes just now. That's a class I actually passed on. You can filter it by class. So I might look and say, well, what do I have to do for 10 design? Well, there's one that I need to mark there, and they've all been done. There's something that I need to be reviewing there. So it helps organise yourself as well. So I'll just go back and show you how to create a class if you've never done that before. You've got a plus sign up the top, and you can either create a class or you can join a class. So for the students, they would click on Join Class, and you would give them a class code. And for a teacher, you create a class. So you give your class a name, something like that, and create. And it takes a few seconds because it's generating that random code for you to be able to share with your students. Okay, and you would go to students, and this is the code that you need to share. So you can invite people by email address, which will take you forever, but you're better just to display the code on the whiteboard if you have it, and the students will type that in themselves, and it will start to populate your class role. Or you can copy it and then send that code out in an email or something like that. Okay, and then you'll have your student list start to populate. Okay, the first thing I always do with students is this part here. I would disable the fact that they can post or comment. Younger students in particular will start to type silly comments, and it becomes a bit like a chat room at the side. So I usually make it that teachers are the only ones who can post or comment. And then you have 4 options at the side here of what you want to do. So you can either create an announcement, which is just to put something out. So remember that homework is due Friday. And you can choose a topic or whatever. I might add a homework sheet there and then post. And so that comes up like you would on social media or something. You can add an assignment. Homework week 1, and then add an attachment to that. So you can, if you're using the Google stuff, click on recent, and then you can choose the stuff that's been recently opened, or you can go into your Google Drive and choose from a folder. Team drives, if it's something that's been created by another colleague that you're sharing, you can go in there. So we've got a department folder there where anything any teachers create that needs to be shared, or you could go to your computer and get it from your hard drive or USB or whatever you need to do. You can upload Word and PowerPoint and PDFs and all those kind of things. It doesn't need to be just docs, forms, slides. And you can add your task. You can add links to websites, YouTube videos, or anything from your drive there. And then you either assign, schedule, or save a draft. Or if you've got a doc on there, if I just add anything just now, you choose whether the students get a copy each. Okay, so students can view the file, which means they can't edit it. It's just something that you want them to see, like maybe a task sheet. And students can edit the file, means every student is working on the same file, or make a copy for each student. So each student will have their own copy. They can't edit each other's work. So you choose which way you want to share that work, and then you can assign it. You can give it a due date if you wanted to, and then that will come up in the class stream there. If you make a mistake, you click on the dots, you can edit it, you can delete it, or whatever in there. So that's creating an assignment. Create questions, quite handy when you want to have a bit of a poll or check for understanding or something like that. So maybe you've been going over some new stuff and you want to put, you know, rate your understanding, something like that, 1 to 5. And then you can put whether it's a short answer, multiple choice. So you might just put, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could add a link if you needed to, but then you just ask. And the students will be polled on that, and you can just, you know, see how things are going. And that's something that you might do, you know, a couple of times a term, and then you can track their progress, see if people are moving on. And the last one is to reuse a post. So you don't have to start from scratch every time, you know, especially if you're in secondary and you've got, you know, a changeover termly, or in a semester where you've got another class, you can reuse a post that you've already given to another class. So I might go into 9 Design, and I'll see all the stuff that I've got in 9 Design and think I really want to reuse that task sheet. I don't want to create another one, so I'll reuse it. And then I might just, and see it's going to put the attachment in as well, and I might just give it a different name. And you can either post it, schedule, or save draft. So I'll post that in there. So that's quite a useful feature as well. Okay, so I think I'll leave it at that and see how we go from there. How's that? Have I stopped sharing?
That's terrific, Caroline. That's a comprehensive look at Google Classroom. Google Classroom is obviously used by lots of secondary teachers because it's such a useful tool and so easy to use, but it's also used by many of our primary school teachers, and that will be a look at Google Classroom that they will be really happy to see. So thank you for that. Look, just before we finish this afternoon, let's touch base with Andrea from our ladies' college, our ladies' primary school at Longreach. So Andrea, you're in the middle of a rebuild here. The school is going to be totally revamped. It should be open in October, or reopened in October. Where do you see G Suite fitting in with what you're doing out here at Longreach?
Our year 3 to 6 classrooms are all one-to-one Chromebooks. So they're all using the Google Classrooms and a few extensions with that.
Okay, so the other thing there, I guess, is Longreach is our most remote school. It's in the far west. Going along with all the challenges of that are the fact that a small community of teachers trying to work with others to improve teaching and learning for their kids. How do you see the Central Queensland GEG helping your teachers out here at Longreach?
Just the fact that they can reach out to other professionals in other areas that we wouldn't normally be able to talk to gain their knowledge to apply to our own classroom teaching.
Yeah, that's terrific, and that's the goal. It's that collective teacher efficacy that we want to see. So, look, as for future plans for the Central Queensland GEG, we're going to have a face-to-face meeting. It's planned for the Google Summit, which is in Rockhampton in September 24, 25. So stay tuned. We made a few changes there with what we were going to do, but we'll put that information out. But we hope to see you come to the Central Queensland Summit in Rockhampton in September, because there really will be something for everyone. Look, so right at the beginning, Anthony shared with us the fact that they were going to be giving away a free ticket, or the EdTech team's giving away a free ticket. So I'll just show you very, very quickly how you go about getting onto that and making that happen. So if you're on the back channel, you can see that there's a link there that says join GEG Australia here. So if you click on that link, you can go to the Central Queensland GEG. So that's going to take just a couple of minutes to load, hopefully not too long. I noticed that before anything that was loading was taking a while. So if you haven't joined, you can click over here where it says member, and you can do what you need to do there. So Anthony asked us to share something that you've learned about G Suite. So to do that, once you're in, and I'm assuming you're going to be using your, if you're in the CathEd system, your ROC credentials or your school credentials, so that you don't have to worry about logging in again. But then to post, all you need to do is click on where it says your name at the top, choose Central Queensland, and sorry, what do we want there? We just want, we'll just leave that. So we're in GEG Australia community. I think I'll have a chance to do something with that in a tick. So you post whatever you've got, and then when it says post, choose category. And the other thing that I didn't do there was add the tag innovation. And I'm probably too late to do that, or can I do that afterwards, Anthony?
Yeah, you can edit your post afterwards.
Yeah, so if I go up here to edit post, hopefully that's going to not take too long to come up. But the trick would, yeah, here we are. So, and we're working. So when I did this morning, Anthony, I thought I was able to put in the tag of innovation. Can I just put that in the post generally?
Yeah, that's right. So that's when somebody clicks on that, you'd then be able to filter within that community by that hashtag innovation.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought I saw earlier that it allowed me to do it separately. So I can just save that, and then I'm in the draw to get that free ticket to the Central Queensland GEG. Sorry, to the summit, courtesy of EdTech team. So look, almost comments on you for joining us. Share the YouTube URL with your friends. Make sure you talk up the Central Queensland GEG, because without your support, it's a waste of time. It's by educators for educators. I'd like to especially thank Anthony, Penny, Martin, Carol Ann for their time. They've obviously had to do some time preparing and to join us here this afternoon. And I'd like to thank Tanya and Andrea at our Ladies School Longreach for hosting us. It's been a great afternoon. Hopefully we'll see you at the face-to-face meeting at the Google Summit in September. So thanks for joining us here for the launch of the Central Queensland GEG.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. See you guys.
See you later.
Thanks, Paul. Cheers.
Thank you.